We are It's Just a Hill, a cycling club that promotes inclusion, judgment-free, with no gatekeepers. Focused on creating content from behind the handlebars to in the studio, It's Just a Hill is producing videos and podcasts to spread the message that cycling is for everyone. We are focused on reminding everyone that riding your bike can help you overcome any obstacle, because after all, it's just a hill. Hello and welcome to another episode of the It's Just a Hill Cycling Podcast. Today I am joined with IJAH member. Have I ever said IJAH on the podcast before? I don't know. Is that how you pronounce it? Adam Carroll. Adam,
hey, how's it going, John?
Good. How would you pronounce IJAH?
I say IJAH.
IJAH? Yeah, that's how people say it.
IJAH, pronounce it like that, yeah.
Oh, wow, that's good.
Yeah.
Adam, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
We just rode.
Yep.
And ate some Chinese food.
Awesome. What is it, Dragon Palace?
Yeah. Dragon Palace here in Richmond, Rhode Island. Technically, it says Wyoming, Rhode Island.
Dragon Palace, Wyoming in Rhode Island.
In Rhode Island, yeah.
Yes.
Which is not confusing at all. We tried to record while we were riding. We were successful for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then both of our phones stopped.
Yeah, what is that, a voice memo on iPhone? You got to figure that one out.
Yeah, so we know not to use the voice memo app on iPhone, but we did have like fuzzy mics plugged into our phones.
We looked like true GCN presenters.
Yeah, they were clipped right to our jerseys, and we talked for, 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah, definitely, at least.
We stopped to check, and I had a 2-minute clip. You had a 3-minute clip. And then when we got back, I listened to it like while you're up by your car, and the first 50 seconds was just me like putting it in my pocket and then saying, okay, we're rolling, right? Because we were riding while we were rolling.
Because we hit a hill at the start.
And then we bombed down a hill, and then it stopped recording. So there's very little.
Good content.
Very little. If there's anything that is usable, I'm going to put it in right here. Okay, so there was basically no usable audio that I thought was worth putting in here from that day Adam and I rode together and recorded. But I did think this was the perfect opportunity to do some plugs. So let me start by letting y'all know about our upcoming It's Just a Hill sales event at our local Oakley store at the Providence Place Mall in Providence, Rhode Island. That is right, we are teaming up with Oakley July 15th, 16th, and 17th for an exclusive discount on Oakley apparel and eyewear during your in-store shopping experience. So you show up to the store, right? You walk into the Oakley store. You walk in one foot after the other. It's a little bit different than being on a bike. It's walking. Slower than running. It's not running, but it's walking. You walk into the store. You can run, I guess. It's probably not safe. It's the mall. So you walk into the store. You tell them It's Just a Hill sent you, and you'll be able to purchase one full-price eyewear goggle or helmet and get an additional item 50% off. Go there with a friend, buy a couple of things, get a good discount. Also, 50% off select apparel. All you have to do is tell them It's Just a Hill sent you. July 15th, 16th, and 17th. Show up, buy some cool cycling stuff, buy some non-cycling stuff. Just tell them It's Just a Hill sent you. It helps everyone. It helps you. You get cool new eyewear. You could, look like guys in the pro peloton. Or girls. You can look like, now there's a female tour. You can look like the people in the pro peloton. You can look like the pros, and it's great. Also, we have a couple of group rides coming up later this week. If you're listening to this the day this comes out, this episode dropped on July 7th. We have 2 rides coming up. The first one I'd like to share is our next Sip and Spin ride. That's on Saturday, July 9th. That's from the western end of the South County Bike Path, 1 Railroad Ave, West Kingston, Rhode Island. It's a 16-mile route, mostly on the bike path, a little bit on the roads. We'll average about 10 to 15 miles per hour. Nice, easy pedaling. This ride is great for new riders and will be at a beginner pace. Get you used to riding in groups, riding on the road a little bit, learn how to signal, all that good stuff. Also, this Friday, the day before, July 8th. That's right. I'm just doing a little bit of math in my head. You subtract 1 from July 9th, you get July 8th. That's our semi-regular Fast Friday ride. Rolling out from the north parking lot at the same Kingston train station in West Kingston, Rhode Island. That's a 31-mile route with some hill efforts, and the idea of this ride is for us to work together, work hard, and work together. Full details for both group rides and all of our group rides are available on our Strava Club page. Also, if you don't know, we love stopping for coffee. Both of the rides I just mentioned, we're going to be stopping at TLC Coffee Roasters right at the end. We love to stop at coffee on our rides. Check out our Strava Club page. Check out the club, the website. You're listening to the podcast. Check out the next episode of the podcast. Check out the last episode of the podcast. Okay, plugs over. Back to the show. Okay, and now we're back. I doubt there was much to be used. some things that we talked about while we were recording. Let's start by talking about those things. I know it might be weird to like talk about them twice, but basically the things that we covered was you recently took a trip to Vermont.
I did.
New Hampshire and Vermont.
New Hampshire, Vermont. I went up to New Hampshire for 2 days
Yep.
to visit my girlfriend's parents with her, and that was prior to going up to the Gran Fondo, the Vermont Gran Fondo, which my first time riding it. So yeah, did a couple of spin-out rides in New Hampshire, met up with you over in Ospey area.
Right.
And then went up to Vermont and did the Gran Fondo, which was a hell of a ride, to say the least.
Now, that's the VTGF. I have the website up here in front of me. The Suarez, it's part of the Suarez Gran Fondo National Series.
It is the timing on the gap climbs, which we'll talk about later. I'm sure that's part of like to get you points towards that series.
Oh, okay, interesting. In this, what town did it start in? Do you know?
Started in Bristol at Bristol Recreation Center.
Bristol Recreation Center.
Yeah.
And I'm on the website here. It says, this is a quote from the website. The Vermont Gran Fondo was born from a popular bucket list epic local gap ride known by the locals as the Lamb Ride, right? Lamb comes from the names of 4 gaps: Lincoln Gap, Appalachian Gap, Middlebury Gap, and Brandon Gap. Oh, the last one.
The last one was nothing compared to the other 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The actual gap was
relatively speaking, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so this is your first time doing it. Your first time riding in Vermont too, right?
First time riding in Vermont. So yeah, it was I guess one of the things that I had kind of stumbled on was the bike setup I was going to take my gravel bike, because I think they say it exactly on the site, but I'm pretty sure it's like 27 miles of dirt.
Yes.
But it's like Vermont dirt road. And then the rest of it is road. Right. So ended up riding the Scott Addict that I have 32C tires through a 36 tooth cassette in the rear. So I think I had 34, 36 for climbing, which needed every single tooth of that on the cassette. But that was like the perfect bike for it, especially because I know we had talked about it earlier, but they had just, even though the towns are supposed to not do this, they were literally that day regrading one of the dirt roads. There's about 5 miles like beach sandy type stuff. So I was happy to have the 32s on that.
How would you explain what grading a road is? Some people might not know what that is.
It's like a big, I don't know, it's like maybe like tilling a sand trap or something in a golf course. Like, I don't know how to describe it more so than that, but yeah, it just kind of, it loosens up the dirt. So instead of having a nice packed track to follow, you're pretty much just on like maybe a couple inches of just loose sand, and you have no track to follow other than maybe the car track that went in front of me.
And it's meant to level out the road, right? Because over the course of like winters, especially here in New England, you get different ruts and ice that comes in and breaks it up. So this like tills the top, say 2 or 3 inches and levels it out. And then after traveling on it with vehicles, it becomes packed.
Like they did it to my road like 2 months ago, and it sucked for the first 2 weeks probably after it was done.
Right.
Yeah. Other than that, though, you could have gotten away with probably 30s or maybe even 28s if you wanted to, but it just for the comfort over a long ride, 32s.
You're on 32s. Yeah. And, it is something that we talked about while we were riding, but it's 109 miles, right?
109 miles, yep.
10,000 feet of climbing?
Yeah, it was like 10.3 or something like that, right around there.
Nice.
Yeah. And yeah, you earn every foot of that. And I know I mentioned it to you earlier.
Yeah.
I think it was like 8,500 feet-ish, give or take, when I checked my Wahoo at like this probably 65-mile mark. So like there's a lot of climbing, and then the rest of it is just long, rolling, undulating hills, and it's 88 degrees, and you're baking in the sunlight in these fields in Vermont. So
how do you feel about a ride that has the majority of the tough stuff in the beginning of the ride?
That's a good question. I kind of don't know that I like it at that much overall, because once I was done the Brandon Gap, I'm like, hell yeah, just finished all of this stuff. I'm good to go. And then it's like, nah, I just got 30 miles of pedaling still. And even on my best day on my tarmac, that's going to take me almost an hour and a half to do. And I have to do it. And now I'm burnt out from, 8,500 feet of climbing.
Right.
Psychologically, that wears on you. And the last SAG stop they have, it's a SAG support event, by the way, which is really sick. Talk about that in a minute. But the last SAG stop was like 20 something miles from the end. So that last 20 miles, you're just like on there. You're just not thinking about anything. It's really hot at that point in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so not a lot of coverage in terms, like you were just in the sun.
Yeah, that last part was a lot of open fields and roads and open fields. So I wore my sun sleeves, thank God, most of the day because I probably would have been burned to a crisp if not.
Yeah, we both swear by sun sleeves.
Yeah,
I'll wear sun sleeves all year long. Yeah, but it seems really cool. For those of you who don't know, a Gran Fondo, it's just Italian for big ride, right? So it isn't necessarily a race.
It's a mass start event. And
Right.
Yeah.
But there are parts where you can make it competitive, right? Was it a timing chip?
Yeah, they gave out timing chips
Yep.
they timed all 4 gap segments, or like the little wires on the road that they get your timing chip and stuff.
Yep.
I actually didn't take the timing chip because it was my first time. It was like, honestly, my personal goal is like just finish the ride and like do the best that I can, because that's a long ride. I mean, we've done longer locally, but that was a lot of climbing and a lot of really steep climbing.
Yep.
So my goal was to just finish. Turns out I did like okay, according to Strava on some of the climb segments. Like I was pretty up there for the day at least. But yeah, it psychologically I didn't take it just for that reason. But the event itself was not a race. Like there was no time at the end other than what I clocked on my Wahoo. So.
And a pretty fun event afterwards. What was that like?
Yeah, they had like free food, and they had beer from Mount Holly Brewing Company. They had a Vermont Gran Fondo IPA, which is actually objectively pretty good. Right. Yeah.
And you're a person that likes beer. You're wearing a Pliny the Elder hat.
Yeah, I like beer. Yeah. I do a lot of home brewing. It's one of my favorite hobbies next to cycling. So like pretty beer snob of me, like thing to say. It was really good. I was impressed because you never know. But so was that. It was food. It was hanging out. But like at that point, I was so burnt out. I'm like, okay, hang out for an hour and party and whatever, and then I'm going back to the Airbnb and just chilling. Yeah. I mean, 7 hours and 2 minutes on the bike, or elapsed time 6:33 for me moving time. Yeah.
It's 7 hours. Oh my gosh, excuse me. We just rode. Give me a break. I'm yawning. It seems like a lot of sponsors, summit sponsors, supporting sponsors, a few media sponsors were there covering the event. That seems really cool.
Yeah, they had like, I know I was telling you earlier, like on the gaps, like you feel like you're on a tour ride because there's the guys in BMWs riding up for SAG support and stuff, and they did the lead out to start the ride. So it kind of had the whole atmosphere of like it felt legit. Like there were no closed roads. It was totally open, but it's in Vermont and you don't see that many cars, relatively speaking. It was early on a Saturday morning. Sure. So
what time did it start?
7:00. Well, so they break it up into 2 groups. They say, at least for the grand part, they say if you think you're going to take longer than 7 hours, start at 7. If you think it's going to be less, start at 8. So I was like, okay, I was in my head, I'm like 9 hours. So I started at 7. Turns out I did far better than that. I exceeded my personal goal, which is cool. So
hell yeah. And so you did the Gran Fondo.
I did the Gran.
You mentioned there were a couple other ones, Medio and
the Medio and Pico. They were like maybe 80 and maybe like 40 to 60 range for the Pico. I forget what it was. The Pico's not too like Pico. I mean, you still got to climb one of the gaps and stuff. Right. But they had other options. But yeah, I did the Gran because for me it was like one of those things where I signed up on January 1st as soon as it opened, and it was one of those. You just sign yourself up for something. You're like, this is going to be a big ride. I'm just going to sign up. And then like, I have to do it because I'm not going to let myself down by not doing it. So it's the same thing kind of with Overland for me. I mean, relatively speaking, it'll be easier. Like from just completing a ride, it'll be harder because it's a race, but it's just like, I'm going to sign up and then I'm going to force myself to like be ready for that.
Yeah. Cause, So you were the only one as part of like our It's Just a Hill group that did this Vermont Gran Fondo. I think a lot of us want to do it. Maybe just go and ride the route sometime.
Definitely would recommend,
But Overland, right? It's in 2 months. End of August?
Yeah, it's like the
August 27th?
Yeah, it's the last. I checked this today. It was the 27th,
Yeah, and today we're recording this, not to timestamp it too much, but on June 30th. So we have 2 months.
Yeah.
It is something that we signed up for on January 1st.
It feels like eons ago.
It does.
Yeah.
And when you're signing up for it, it's like you're excited to do it, but you don't necessarily
think about the pain and the suffering.
Right. Yeah. It's like, and it's one of these events that it does sell out. And so you're like, you're getting ready to sign up for it. You're talking with your friends about signing up for it. This was before we really knew each other too much.
I'd only ridden with you guys like twice at the end of 2021 at that point. So yeah.
You weren't in the, what's a good adjective for the group chat? Asinine. So you weren't.
It's something.
Yeah, it's something.
It's something.
So you weren't like necessarily part of the hive mind that is It's Just a Hill at the time, but you signed up for it, and now I think it's fun, like because you're going up there with a buddy, right?
Yeah, my friend John also without an H, so you guys can fight for that.
Amazing.
Yeah. Him and I are going up, so I'm assuming that what our plan is just to link up with you guys.
Yeah,
like he doesn't know you guys, but I'm like, I know all these dudes from IJAH. That's how we determine IJAH.
That's how we pronounce it.
IJAH. Yes. I know all these IJAH guys coming up, so we can like hang out, and hopefully it's gonna be like a nice fun party, and then we'll just punish ourselves on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Going up the day early, doing a shakeout ride, camping, riding the Overland,
camping out again, doing like a recovery ride the next day, and then driving back home.
No, it's one of those just dedicating a weekend to riding bikes, which sounds awesome.
It does
sounds
awesome.
great. Yeah.
Would you do the Gran Fondo again, the Vermont Gran Fondo?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of those things. Same thing with Overland. It's like a lot of money to sign up for, but
hefty price tags for a lot of these events.
$150 for both of them, I think. So
Yeah.
January 1st was a $300 race registration day for me.
Right.
I would totally do it again. It was good. The SAG stops, it was Hammer Nutrition. I never had their stuff before. Like some of the like gummies and peripheral stuff were great. Hydration mix, whatever. I had my Scratch Labs for one bottle. Yeah. That's where it's at for me.
Was it more the taste as opposed to like the nutrients that you got from it?
It was the taste for sure. Scratch is like slightly watered down Gatorade, which I'm cool with. That's great. Right. Yeah, this one was a little bit chalky, kind of didn't have I don't know if they didn't mix enough in because they had like Gatorade coolers, like the football, like 5-gallon coolers.
Sure.
I don't know if they mixed it to the right ratio or whatever.
Right.
But all the homemade stuff, or what I presume was homemade stuff from like people that support the event, that was sick. Like they had, I think it might have been 5 or 6 rest stops. It was like every 20 to 25 miles. Yeah. And like the first one, I grabbed some Fig Newtons or whatever and gummies. The second one I rolled up, it was after the Lincoln Gap. They're freaking cooking pancakes and bacon at it, and they had
cooking them there.
Yeah, they were cooking. The dude had a griddle, cooking them there.
That rules.
I grabbed like an oatmeal raisin cookie. They had the sandwich that I know I wrote on Strava and I was telling you about, which was someone made on wheat bread. It was a Fluff-N-Udder blueberry and bacon sandwich, and it was. I had one at every rest stop that had one. It was just so good.
I've never had that combination.
Neither have I.
So wheat bread. Toasted or not toasted?
Not toasted, just like a lunch sandwich.
Lunch sandwich. Blueberries.
Fluff.
Fluff.
Like a marshmallow fluff.
Fluffernutter.
Yeah.
From Somerville, Massachusetts. Yes. Fluffernutter, for those of you who... Because it's kind of a regional thing. It's just marshmallow.
Yeah. It's like, it's just gooey marshmallow stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And bacon.
Yep.
Bacon strips.
No, it's like someone cooked bacon, then kind of chopped it up a little bit into smaller pieces. Yeah. It was freaking awesome.
Sweet and salty. I mean, like, I love like a maple bacon donut, so that seems right up my alley.
Yeah, and they had like another thing that I got to, several of them. I ate quite a bit on this ride. Yeah. It was just like a peanut butter and banana sandwich. It was hell yeah, that sounds so good. And they had bananas that were cut up. A couple of them had oranges and apples at the stop. So like, it was just like stuff your pockets, stuff your face, and then continue riding for another 20 miles or something like that.
Yeah, I think something like that, right? You talk about the price tag being expensive, right? Cycling, sort of inherently expensive hobby.
Yeah.
Getting that type of support makes you feel like you've got your money's worth.
Like, for an example, a good one that I didn't mention to you earlier is like there was this lady on one of the climbs, and I think she was doing like the middle size route, the media one. Mm-hmm. So I had come up like behind her, and she looked like she was kind of struggling on the last gap. And like one of the dudes on a motorcycle rolled up and was like, "Hey, are you okay? Everything good?" Like just checking in on it. So like it's nice to know that they're kind of got your back, because I mean you're out there in Vermont. I didn't have cell service because my mom and my girlfriend were trying to track me on the Wahoo, and you need for the live track
real connection, and
they would go hours without seeing like an update of where I was. Right. So yeah, it's really hard. You're just out there. You can't get help if something happens. So it's good to have that.
Yeah, it is good. I've been to events that, I mean, might be a little bit less, but you feel almost let down by the food, right? And like that, I mean, not that it's just about the food, right? It's about the experience, but nothing makes you feel better than like being able to stuff your pockets every 20 miles and keep your stomach
It was
full.
like the carrot on the stick. It was like, okay, that's my next goal. I'm just getting next rest stop. I mean, I needed the water at that point because it was, 85, 88 degrees. So I was like, okay, I legitimately need to stop.
Right.
I probably didn't stop for more than 5 minutes to 7 minutes based on my moving versus elapsed time. Yeah. But just enough to, stuff my pockets, whatever gummies they have. I got to figure out the brand. They were really good. Yeah. I don't know if it was Hammer, but they were really good. And I was just like loading up and snacking on the way. So
yeah, it sounds awesome in terms of like the support. It reminds me of our favorite ride to plug here on the podcast, the Berkshire Velo Greylock Century Challenge, which unfortunately you won't be attending because you'll be out of town.
I will be coming back from San Diego. Actually, sorry. Now that Breeze, thanks Breeze, canceled my flights. Yeah. I'll be flying in not Saturday, but Sunday morning overnight. So, unfortunately.
But that level of support, right? And homemade sandwiches and
that's awesome.
People that are supportive of you and cheering you on, and like there's nothing better than that, as opposed to like, I would much rather pay a sort of higher price tag and get that level of support than pay like $40 less and get little to nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
No, everyone was a friendly face at every rest stop. Hey, how's it going? You know, you're doing great. How's the ride? You know, everyone is just, I mean, it's Vermont probably for one, because everyone's just nice up there.
Yes.
But yeah, it was like, everyone was just super friendly. It was a very much like, unlike a race environment, you were encouraging each other, like, go on, good job, guy. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Vermont Gran Fondo, check it out.
Absolutely.
Speaking big picture, cycling, I'd like to talk about goals, right? We sort of discussed a couple things that we'd like to talk about.
Yeah.
First thing on the docket here, well, I guess second thing now, because we recovered the things that we already talked about a little bit. But are there any goals that you have for this year? Or if there aren't any goals that you have, how do you feel about setting goals for yourself?
So yeah, coming in last year was the first year I took like kind of, I'd say, seriously with cycling. And so I did about 2,500 miles and like 200,000 feet of climbing over the year, because I did the Washington ride. So I got a lot of climbing and prep for that. A lot of Alpe du Zwift. But yeah, so this year I was like, I'd like to ride 5,000. I think 5,000 is an achievable amount. But like we were saying, some of my time is split on mountain bike too. So the mileage kind of gets, it's not all road. So it gets a little screwed up there. But yeah, and then I was kind of holding myself to, I cycled like every day on Zwift, granted, but cycled every day in January. And then like, I was like, yeah, I'll keep going. At some point, it's just like, I got to stop, because like that goal is not attainable, and psychologically it was burning me out from doing that.
Right.
The 5,000 is still attainable, and I tried to keep it within reason for something that's like, as long as I just keep plugging away and keep my fitness up, this is fine, but it'll be a personal milestone. And I think today, we were talking about earlier, I just hit 900 miles this month, which for me, like 900 miles in a month, that's like my biggest month by by 300 or 400 miles.
Nice job.
So I'm pretty stoked about that. That's why I made you make the ride more than 29 miles today.
Right.
Yeah,
right. We rode 40, and so now you're at 911.
Okay, can we go back out and ride another?
Oh, shit. This is not good.
Not good.
Delete.
Why didn't you think of this?
Yeah, goals are interesting. I've talked about this on the podcast before. I started the year with these goals and like just setting them on Strava, and I have since deleted all of them except for a weekly, hourly goal. Right?
I think so. I was talking with Marcus too one time when we rode, and he was kind of doing the hourly thing versus miles, and I think that's a good way. And I probably should start looking at it like that, because when I ride my mountain bike, I'll do an hour and do like maybe less than 10 miles.
Right.
And those are like really hard miles.
Right.
Yeah.
They're still there. It's still progress, right?
Yeah.
It's still helping your fitness. It's still time on the bike. And it's still time. This is not a knock at Zwift. It's still time outside. Right.
Yes.
It's still time enjoying nature. Because like, to me, that is a very big part of riding, is like seeing these different places, right? Both of us grew up in Rhode Island.
Yep.
But you sort of, America is a car culture. You spend so much time in your car traveling, and when you're in your car traveling, you're traversing the more popular routes, the fastest routes to get somewhere.
Yep.
The highways, the expressways. Riding your bike, you go on back roads that you've never been on before.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And then like when you add gravel into that mix, that is really fun, especially up around areas where you are right here, where I am up in Foster, because it's just a cool way to connect road to, like, I don't have to just stick on the road. I can like hit a trail, pop back out on the road, hit trail. Like, that's super fun. I found so many cool little, cut throughs and shit like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really, really like that about cycling, because I like the adventure. I'd done a lot of hiking in my past before I was into cycling too. And so I love that type of just like wilderness, just go out and find something new. Like, that's super fun to me.
See something that you've never seen before, and like something that could almost be right in your backyard, right? When you had like no idea about it.
No, it's
great
crazy.
Views and cool little shops and like meeting people and like experiencing, like small town America, right?
Yeah, the coffee shops like that. I love that about the group rides, because I love coffee. Like,
Same.
So stopping at all these little craft coffee shops is awesome. I've never been to pretty much any of them except for the ones that we've started to go to on the ride. So like, I'm learning all these new cool places and stuff. Yeah. Local business, small business, like, that's all great. I love that.
Hell
and cycling culture at least kind of facilitates around that small business and helping the local coffee shops and stuff.
Yeah, and that's the part of cycling culture that I love.
Because there's parts that are...
There are a lot of parts that are not great about it, right? If you didn't skip the intro of the podcast, you heard our mission statement, right? We talk about gatekeeping and how we don't stand for it. And we talk about inclusivity and just trying to get people on bikes, right?
Yeah.
So like most of the people that might be listening to this podcast are probably around the same type of cyclists as us, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not pros by any means,
No.
but we can put in some bigger efforts and ride faster if we want, as opposed to someone who's a little bit more entry level. But to me, I think anyone should be able to get on their bike. And so like that's why we host rides that are like our sip and spin ride or whatever, right? To get people out on the bike and different stuff like that, because there is so much in cycling that is just centered around white men in the way they think you should ride your bike, which like sucks, right? Like I don't want to get into too many details, but I personally very recently experienced what I thought was gatekeeping by a local cyclist who's probably like 50 or so years old. He came to one of our group rides, and then after I thanked them for coming, him and his group
Told you how to ride the ride.
He told me how the ride should be organized, right? And I'm trying to come from this from like a level of like being humble, right? Like we're like new, right? Like you said you've been more involved in cycling for like the past year. I've only been into cycling for like 3 years or so, right? The first year was like I was like a bike path warrior, right? I was riding by myself on the bike path. I started on a mountain bike on the bike path. Then I had like a specialized tri-cross, right? Which is like sort of used to be what gravel bikes were like 10 years ago, but it had rim brakes. And I don't know what
You're figuring this out too.
I'm figuring out. I know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I'm a person just like everyone else. So while I appreciate criticism, I do not appreciate unsolicited advice.
There's also a way to like deliver that.
Sure.
I mean, I know what you're referencing, and the way it was delivered could be done much differently in a nicer way. And
because this was done on a group chat with about 30 other people. So this motherfucker put me on blast.
Yeah.
And
you could take it offline.
Yeah. You can message me directly.
Yeah.
And if you want to say something, you can say something, right? And I think a lot of valid points were made, right?
Yeah.
On our group rides, sometimes shit gets spicy.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's fun.
Yeah.
And different people have different ideas of what their ride is or what their fitness level is on any day. And if I recall correctly, we were not dropping people. We were still waiting around corners. And if I could make one more point, I think that guy only rode with us for about 7 miles of a 50-ish mile ride.
So do the math. So way less than a quarter.
We put on 40 plus group rides at around 50 miles each. So that's like 2,000 miles of group rides. This guy rode with us for 7 miles and is trying to give me a bunch of advice. So guess what? Keep it to yourself next time, okay? If you happen to be listening. If you're not listening, fine. That's fine. I hate to get too fired up, but I felt like that needed to be said because there is a lot of gatekeeping in cycling and unwritten rules, right? This is something that I've talked about before. If you think there is a rule that people should be following, it should not be unwritten. It should be communicated.
Yeah. No, and I've learned a lot from you guys because up to this point, I was on my mountain bike in the woods, and if I was road riding, I was alone up in Smithfield at my mom's house.
Right.
So yeah, getting into it from a new person's perspective, if you want to like start taking it seriously and do club rides, is really intimidating, I feel like, because, I was looking around and kind of trying to see what groups are around here, and they all look super serious. And I'm like, I just don't know how to connect to these people because I like cycling. I like taking it seriously, but I just like to go out and have fun and meet new people and chat and stuff. So yeah, and that's when I saw you guys. It was like, oh, people who are like in my age group that seem to be into it. I checked out your website, the whole like your mission statement stuff. Like I was like, okay, these guys seem cool. Reached out to you, and then the rest is whatever. That's why I'm here now. But,
and so to me, that's like why I started the club, right?
And you guys were super cool with that. Like when I went to my first group ride, I was like, I could have shat in my bib shorts. It was like, holy shit! Like, what am I doing? I don't know what the hell is going to happen. And I kind of learned like all the hand signals. You guys are like, oh, 2 fingers behind the back. That's like, follow me. Like you taught me. It wasn't like, oh, look at this douche who isn't like calling out holes. Like you were like, hey, this is kind of what happens.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't feel like I was like pressured. And I totally feel like had I chose a different entry into riding with a group, I probably would feel differently about cycling, honestly.
Yeah, I had sort of a different experience when I first started riding with groups that I, drove my car 30 minutes somewhere and got my ass handed to me and got dropped the first 5 miles of like a 60-mile ride.
And no one waits up for you.
And that's not fun.
No.
That's not welcoming.
No. And I think we're good with the group, like at least the rides I've been on. You get guys who fall behind. You stop and wait in an intersection. Because you know what? Having fun and bringing the whole group around is more fun than saying, dude, I burned you and look at you finishing 10 minutes past me or whatever.
Right. Strava is not racing.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm done with the self-serving part of this podcast. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back because, like I said before, is like our group is not perfect. I am far from perfect. I'm not trying to consider myself like a savior of cycling, right? But like to change the mindset of a predominantly white male sport, which, like, let's be honest, white men, you've had your time.
Yeah.
We've had our time.
Some cranky people
Yeah,
there.
exactly. So, like, just to be more open-minded about it and, like, meet people, right? Like, cycling brought us together.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be friends if it wasn't for bikes.
No.
And to me, that's what's great about it.
Yeah, it's super cool. And yeah, I feel like there is a lot of gatekeeping. Like I know we're talking about other sense with like how people perceive other cyclists in the sense of like, oh, look at this dude on the side of the road. Like look at his crappy bike. He must be a total amateur. Look at him. It's like, I look at it as like, you're going out for a ride. You're enjoying yourself. That's more to be said. Like in another tangent, and especially this is big in the mountain bike world, maybe for slightly different reasons, but e-bikes, like that type of thing. I'm totally cool with it. I don't see why people have an issue with it. Like I get that people going on e-bikes up mountain bike trails that are downhill only, that's dangerous. Sure, that's a different story. But like e-bikes, some people...
I didn't realize that was a thing.
Yeah.
That's like a problem.
Mountain bikers can kind of be like, yeah, e-bike people can blast up trails that are supposed to be downhill only, so it's dangerous because you could be going to something that's oncoming traffic. I understand that argument.
That does make sense.
But like the e-bike, like my mom's boyfriend, like would not be able to be out riding a bicycle because he's got like onsets of Parkinson's and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but an e-bike, he can
Gets
go
you
out
outside.
and he can go out and enjoy it. Or even my mom, she'll steal the e-bike if she wants to come out for a ride, and I can ride my speed and she can just keep up with me. Like that's awesome.
I totally agree.
So, yeah, people perceive cyclists in a certain cyclists perceive other cyclists in a certain way based on how they dress, what they look, and I mean, we're all out there for the same reason, to have fun and ride a bike. I think that's the important part.
And because like as cool as it might be to like drool over some gear, right,
which I'm a sucker for.
Yeah, same, right? Like we both ride nice bikes.
Yeah,
we like nice bikes, and it's fun to share nice things with your friends, right?
Yes,
I mean. You're sitting in this room. I have toys in here. I have shoes in here. I like to collect things.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily it doesn't equal my worth as a person.
No.
It just means like I like certain things, right?
No. And there's nothing wrong with, in my opinion, it was the same thing at Guitar Center when I was working there because I used to work there.
Yeah.
It was like, I always would tell people when they were buying guitars, it's like Jimi Hendrix could make a Squire, which is an entry-level guitar, super entry-level. He could make that sing way better than I could play my $3,000 Les Paul.
Right.
It is what it is. But I hate when people, same with Guitar Center, same with cycling, think that, you're not good enough to own this bike. Yeah. Right. Like that's just not the case. Like if you have the money and that's what makes you happy.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Right.
Like there's no problem with that.
Right. Because that comes back to like judging someone, right? Like get to know someone and what their goals are before you just see someone on a Pinarello Dogma F12 that might be averaging 60 miles per hour. That's fine.
Yeah, and it's like I took my Scott to the Vermont Gran Fondo. That's not like a shitty bike by any means, but it was like an $1,800, like the lowest end carbon bike you can get. I have Tiagra, a 10-speed group set. Like by all means, that's a heavy group set.
Right.
That carried my ass up Mount Washington. That brought me over the Vermont Gran Fondo. Like that didn't hold me back. Right. Now I just got my tarmac and I got it because like I wanted it. Like I want a nice bike. I'm probably not worthy enough a rider because I know there are dudes who are going to smoke me on shittier bikes, but like there should be nothing wrong with, buying that if I have the money to buy it. Yeah.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
There should be nothing wrong with you wanting to buy it or someone not wanting to buy one, right? It shouldn't. It should not determine a person's worth.
Yeah, or how you are perceived by other people.
Absolutely. Right. Just like get to know someone, right? Yeah. And that to me is like a weird thing about cycling and group rides is a lot of the times people might show up, not say anything, put their helmet on, clip into their bike, go out, hammer, get back to their car, put their bike back on their roof rack or whatever, and drive home. And That's fine too, if that's what you want to do, but that does not appeal to me at all.
No, because I would just keep doing what I've been doing for the few years prior, which
Ride
was
alone.
just ride alone.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
why bother dealing with the dynamics of having a group and stuff if I could just ride alone? I like going because it makes me explore new roads. It makes me meet new people, and it's fun to chat. And like, I mean, we're talking about bikes right now. I love talking about bikes and tech and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's super fun. So it's just an excuse to do that like once a week.
Right. So relatively new to road cycling.
Yeah.
Right? Before riding on the road, you had a little bit more of a mountain bike background. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Right.
super amateur. So I wouldn't toot my own horn by any means. Like I was just a guy who rides his bike in the woods. But yeah, I came from mountain biking. Like I had a series of crappier bikes, and I used to just bang around. And the time where it's a simpler time, and you don't care about the tech and stuff. And it's like, here's my crappy $200 Fuji. I had fun.
Yep.
You know, I just recently got a Stump Jumper Evo, which is a really sick bike because I like going to the bike park occasionally. And I'm no bike park hero, but I enjoy hitting some jumps and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's kind of my first like super serious mountain bike. But yeah, I would say I've been riding mountain bikes for like since probably near the end of high school for me. So like 10 years, maybe 8 years.
Yep.
I had it down when I was at URI. I used to go ride like Francis Carter and stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah. So in Burlingame.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've come from that. So road cycling is definitely like, it's crazy to me how they're all bikes. Like they're bikes, but it's just so vastly different.
Oh,
it's like
sure.
the culture, the tech, everything. It's like apples and oranges. There's almost no commonality other than they have two wheels in a group set and shit. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, as much as it pains me to say it, mountain bikers seem so much cooler.
It's all
so
about
much more approachable.
Mountain bikers are like skiers, and like you hang out, and it's all like go to the bike park, hang out, and then drink beer and eat pizza after. It's just like it's much more laid back. Like it's almost like a freaking Jekyll and Hyde when you see me in my mountain bike gear versus my road gear, because I just came from like literally an Aero skin tight suit,
right?
And then I have like my super baggy fly racing jersey, like baggy shorts, like the downhill helmet, the pads. Right. It's just like it's so funny how different it is from one another.
Right. And it is. It's a totally like, it's not a separate world, but it is a very different world. And there aren't many like cyclists like us, amateur cyclists that do it all, right? Yeah. There are a few, right? Noah's been on this podcast a bunch. He rides mountain bike and
Cole
gravel,
and stuff.
Cole. Yeah. You have different disciplines. I ride a gravel bike. Hopefully I'm getting a mountain bike in the next like 6 months or so.
That'd be sick because I got a ton of great trails I can show you guys around local areas.
But it seems to be a little bit more distant. And that sort of like distance, I think, only perpetuates more distance.
Yeah. Right? And it's weird to be at the bike park and like if you hear people, if like somehow road cycling comes up, like how they view road cyclists and like, I don't know. I think I view myself maybe as the more I ride, the more I'm like, man, maybe I'm more of a roadie than I thought I was. It's so funny to hear them talk. Like they like laugh at like the Lycra and shit like that. And it's like, I don't know. It's the same thing cross culture. Like road cycling is hard in its own way. Like sure, you're not hitting a freaking backflip off of a 10-foot spine or whatever, but it's hard. I'm guarantee you a lot of the mountain bike guys couldn't go out and do the group rides that we do.
Sure.
And a lot of the guys that do group rides probably can't go out, and same with myself. I can't bang some of the jumps those guys are doing.
I would kick my ass.
Crazy.
I'd be falling over left and right.
Yeah, it's like, it's insane. It's very humbling when you go to like a bike park and you see how good some of these people are.
Sure.
It's the variety is really good. It's nice to see it all. It's good to experience it all and see the cultures.
Yeah, because like that just speaks to like just being more well-rounded, like as a person, right?
Yeah.
Like you're just experiencing different things. You're getting to see things in a different way. And to me, it like also helps your fitness having different disciplines, right?
Yeah. Riding a mountain bike is just like there's no such thing as regular cadence when you're riding a bike on a chunky trail. It's like, ratchet pedal here to go over a rock and then punch it up this little climb, drop your dropper post to go down this little descent. Yeah, it's a very full
little
body.
Track stand here to like get this around.
I've been trying to work on that, or like do with a little pogo stick if I need to turn something. It gets you active in a way on a road bike that you don't see normally.
Right. Yeah, that's what I like about gravel is I feel like gravel miles make me like stronger per mile versus road.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the kickback to my fitness is much more when I go and I ride gravel versus when I go and ride road. I enjoy riding on the road more. It's just more easily accessible. even in this new place that I live, like, which is closer to trails, it's a lot easier for me to just like get my road gear on, get on my road bike, and go ride on the road.
Absolutely.
There's just less gravel trails around, right? There's more paved roads. If I lived in the middle of Vermont, which has like, I know we mentioned it before on the podcast, like 70% of their roads are gravel.
Yeah, and they're awesome. They're all so awesome. Yeah.
It might be a different mindset.
You probably just
right?
have a gravel bike in the road would be like the secondary, or you have road wheels for your nice gravel bike.
Exactly,
yeah.
right? But that's just like a different perspective.
Yeah.
Something that I've said a lot, I've probably said it on the podcast, like your perspective is your reality, my perspective is my reality, right? And so like that is just very different depending on what you have experienced in life.
And gravel just kind of breaks the molds in the sense of like it's almost the perfect harmony between like the mountain bike, like laid back culture of mountain biking,
Yes.
but yet the fitness of road biking. It's very interesting. And then the level of gravel, like you go on what like Marcus and I rode yesterday, which is just a great ride, but it's a lot of dirt roads, a couple of trail sections that were really fun. And
Relatively
you go on like
smooth.
Yeah, you go on like the GBRI rides, and I'm like, you know, that's sick. This feels like I'm riding like a mountain bike almost, in it can do it all. It's really cool. I mean, you know, jack of all trades. Obviously, I'm not going to go bomb some of the stuff on my gravel that I would on my mountain bike, but that's a cool hybrid culture that I think is really like, it kind of has the best of both worlds in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. I ride gravel with people that ride mountain bikes, and they blow my mind with like what they can do around like technical sections, right?
Yeah.
But it is like a wide swath of it's the term gravel is confusing, right? Like it should, I almost like to say it's just like off-road riding or like unpaved riding, you know, because it's a different bike than what you ride on the road, but it really depends on what kind of trails you hit.
Yeah. It's the interpretation of what gravel is just so vastly different. Like I can look at this and be like, we both agree that that's like brick color.
Yes.
That's not the same for gravel.
No.
That is not the same at all.
No, some people in our circle of friends, right, they see gravel very differently than others, right?
Yeah.
I am a big fire road, less technical single track type of person, right?
Yeah.
Coming from a road cycling background. People that come from mountain bike backgrounds, they love that technical shit, right? They're throwing their front wheel over a rock. They're picking up their back wheel on a totally different axis of where their front wheel was.
Yeah.
And I'm getting off my bike to get around that stuff.
I find the descents for gravel for me to be harder. Like not having the suspension. I mean, I'm used to lately my stump jumper is like 160 mils of travel. Like that thing is like riding a lazy boy down some of these trails. Yeah. So actually the descending has been a little bit trickier to just kind of maneuver the bike. You really have to pick your lines so your head isn't just getting completely rattled off its, its rocker. So there's definitely a lot of things that my technical climbing skills feel good going into gravel, like that 2 mile smile section. Like I felt good climbing that. Yeah. I know how to like pick my tire and move my bike, all that stuff you do on a mountain bike. But yeah, it still makes you work. Like it's not like, oh, I mountain bike, therefore I'm good at gravel.
No. It's a different type of challenge.
There's definitely a skill set that you inherently come in from mountain bike that you bring with you that helps you get started in gravel. But then I watch like Noah ride and I'm like, wow, he makes me look like a chump.
Then in the opposite way, after riding gravel, I feel like when I ride the road, I can handle around like anything. Yeah. Right? Because on the gravel bike, you're not necessarily actively avoiding as many things because you can't avoid certain routes.
You pick the
and
lesser
rocks and
of
stuff.
evils.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you go to the road and it's like, okay, there's a couple of potholes or a couple of sections. Like, let me just go around those real quick.
You see it in slow-mo versus gravel. It's like
exactly.
You see it so far in advance.
Exactly. Yeah. So I love all that. Before we end here, I'd like to talk about pro cycling a little bit. You watch pro cycling?
Yeah, I've been getting into it the past like year or so since I've taken my road cycling more seriously. I've been getting into it and I enjoy, like, I'm excited for tomorrow to start. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, when this comes out, the tour will be sort of in the middle of its run, the 2022 Tour de France. I'm going to plug our own podcast. Cal and I sat down and like talked about it in the last episode, just like a preview of the race. Are you new to watching pro cycling? Relatively new?
Yeah, because none of my family, like I know you said your dad was into it and stuff like that. Like for me, this is like I'm paving my own path. My girlfriend's dad is pretty into cycling. So she would watch it a little bit. Actually, she probably has watched it more than I have in my lifetime. But yeah, I've been getting into it more. I don't know. The more I road bike, the more I appreciate like how absolutely difficult it is. And you think of like what they're doing day in and day out. Right. And I'm just like, we rode that double metric on last Monday.
Yes.
And like my legs still hurt from that and the Gran Fondo combined. And those were 2 century rides 5 days apart.
Right.
I can't even imagine doing that every single day for the better part of 3 weeks.
They're doing it 21 days over 24 days.
Yeah.
Right. So, so a double metric, 200 kilometers, just under 125 miles. They're averaging that, except for the time trial stages, like all the time.
Almost every day.
Yeah. At 25 miles per hour average.
300 watts just to stay in the peloton for some of those. Like,
in the Alps, in the Pyrenees, like some of the tallest mountain ranges in the world going up. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It is mind-blowing.
Well, when I was on the
level.
Lincoln Gap, which that is a steep road, super steep. If none of you have ridden it or whoever else, I know you have.
I have.
It's like you're in your lowest gear and you are standing and you wish you had lower gears. Yeah. And I can't even imagine that's a Cat 2 climb, I think, on that. So, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I pulled it up and I was trying to Google it, but that was a motorcycle one first. So let me get to the Green Mountain climb. No, just give me the P-Jam. Whatever P-Jam is, I love looking at it. And here it is. Climbing Lincoln Gap. It is, there's 2 sides to climb it, obviously. I'm looking at the east, Lincoln Gap East, 4.1 miles, 1,500 feet of elevation gain, average gradient of 6.7%. And at the top, it gets to 16, 17, 18%.
Oh, yeah, I think I heard 22 in some sections.
22.
I mean, it was like, if you wanted to stay seated, which some sections I'm pretty convinced you actually couldn't, but if you wanted to stay seated and your chin wasn't over your stem, you were pulling wheelies every time you put power down.
Yes.
And I looked at my Strava numbers for because the last mile is way steeper than even the lead in.
Yes.
That last mile, like my Strava numbers estimated, I don't actually have a power meter. It was like 300 watts and I didn't even feel like I was trying. I was just like, this is what I need to do to literally keep the bike upright. Or else I'm going to tip over.
It kicks way up at the end, right? And so, like, the steepest quarter mile is 17.7%. There's a continuous mile that averages 15.5%.
That's the segment.
That's the end.
Yeah.
That's the last mile, averages 15.5%. And like you said, if your weight is distributed wrong, it's like borderline scary. Like, am I going to fall over one side or the other, right? Like,
and I know that I mentioned it earlier. I was talking to a guy super cool on the Gran Fondo ride, and we were chatting for like the first 10 or 15 miles while we were kind of riding together. And he told me that he had tried it like 2 years ago, and he said that it's the only time in his adult life that he has gotten off his bike to walk a section of road. And I was like, oh yeah, that's crazy, dude, whatever. And then I got to it like, an hour later and I was like, no, like I see where this guy's coming from. Like that's the only time I've contemplated I'm about to get off my bike and walk a section because it's so freaking steep.
It's so steep.
Yeah.
But it is a lot of fun and
very rewarding to be able to say you didn't get off your bike and you went over it.
I did get off my bike, but I blame
you also had a lot of stuff.
I blame my 40-pound bike and not like the 150 miles that I had in my legs the couple days beforehand. But it's very fun. I would love to ride up it on a road bike and not a gravel bike in a bike packing setup, right? Yeah. So that's the reason why the bike was so heavy when Brian and I were out there. Is like we had full camping gear, tents and food, and
I can't even imagine. It was me and my bike, and I had a good gearing ratio of 34, 36, and I put that cassette, the 36, I put that on there with intent. I had bought that when I did the Washington climb, and I was like, this is the perfect time to use it again.
Right.
And I still was searching for something lower than that.
Yeah, it's a wild experience, but is a lot of fun, and that's the type of thing that like feels like a challenge and feels super rewarding afterwards. It doesn't matter how quickly you get up it, but it's like I get up it.
Right? I mean, that section, it was like 1.3. It's like there's like VT, like Gran Fondo Lincoln Gap like segment on Strava.
Yes,
I think it was like 1.3 miles. It was like 15 minutes for me to go, or 14 something to go 1.3 miles.
Yeah.
Like that's, and that was me like full gas. My heart rate was in the red I think my heart rate was 170 the entire time. My average heart rate for the 6.5 hours was 149 according to for 6.5 hours. Yeah. And you were hitting 170 all day long going up those climbs.
Of course.
You needed to do it if you want to stay upright.
Right. Because you're just going to have to get off or have to fall over.
And if you get off the bike, good luck. How do you restart with clipless? You need to go like downhill and turn back up.
Yeah, which is like so damning, right?
Yeah.
Like, when we stopped, I think Brian made it a little bit further up than me. I stopped a little bit sooner. I literally remember being like, nope. We could almost see the top. It was wet. It was covered in leaves. And after I got off, I contemplated getting back on. But at like 15%, what are you gonna do?
Dude, I struggled
You have
even
no
to
momentum.
I struggled to clip in on when we did a group ride a few weeks ago. I guess I had done Shannock Hill. I guess it is from the other way, the steep way.
Yes.
I struggled to reclip on that, and that's like half the gradient. I
Yeah.
feel like of what that section was
Yeah.
on Vermont.
Yeah. I think Shannock on the steep side might get to like 12 or 13%. Much shorter of a climb.
Yeah,
It's probably like
half a mile.
half a
tops.
mile, 0.7. Yeah, if that, right? So like it's just not the same type of climbing you get around
No,
here.
that
So it is
that
like,
made you
whoa.
feel like a pro. I was like, this is what they feel like when they're in the tour. Like
Yep.
that's
Right.
and that just puts into the perspective of these guys are frigging insane.
It's a next level.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you saying Jimi Hendrix would kick your ass
Yeah.
with a Squire. Pog would kick our ass on a beach cruiser.
Absolutely,
Right?
he would.
Like just destroy us. But yeah, are there any other, right? We talked about Overland. Are there any other things right, not overall goals, but like rides that you have coming up that you're excited about or anything like that before we get out of here?
I'm really hoping that maybe we'll pull together a 200-mile ride. I'm really
Yes.
interested in that. Like that's like a
Yes.
cool milestone to just personally be able to tell myself like I rode 200 miles in a day. I'd love to be able to say that. So that would be, other than Overland, do the Tour de Rhody. Everyone should do that because that's such a good event.
Tour de
And,
Rhody's
yeah,
amazing. Check it out.
It's free to do, but like you should raise money. But it's not like there's like the bike to the beach or something, whatever, like a good cause, but like you minimally need to raise $1,000. And if you don't, you need to cover the overage or something like that.
Right.
It's, I want to do that for what it stands for, but I can't risk, especially with how things are right now.
Right.
I can't get 1,000 and I can't cover that. I can't afford to cover that.
Right.
So Tour de Rhody's awesome. You go, it's free to sign up. I got my mom signed up. I got my girlfriend signed up.
Yep.
Just raise money. Last year they got $100,000.
Yes.
And it's a wicked fun ride. If you do the gravel, you get to ride on fire lanes and stuff around the reservoir that you wouldn't
Which are
get to do.
closed down, right? They have been closed
You will-
since the previously mentioned 9/11.
Yes, you will get in trouble
Yes.
if you are on those roads any other day but this particular day.
And there are like parts of raising money are like certain goals or certain rewards. If you raise a certain amount of money, you get a jersey.
Yeah, I got $600 last year, so I crossed that 500 threshold, and I got an awesome jersey, and it's really cool. And I got
That's
the
so cool.
T-shirt.
Right.
I saw Jocelyn was wearing the same T-shirt I have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's the T-shirt. Jocelyn, my lovely wife Jocelyn, gets to wear all these T-shirts that I
you
either
earned.
Well, earned,
you
or I
pedaled
paid for.
them.
Yeah, like my secret squirrel from Cross. It's like an orange shirt, and I don't like. You obviously can't tell because you listen to a podcast, but I wear black all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not wearing an orange shirt. I'm not wearing. No offense to Tour de Rhody, I'm not wearing your yellow shirt, but my wife will wear it, and it raises money for Brown Oncology and Tom Olila. I apologize if I'm pronouncing your name.
I've
the
never
wrong
met
way.
him. He seems super cool.
I've only chatted with him via email. He organizes it. It is taking place in September.
Yep.
You can sign up on the website. You can sign up on Bike
Bike
Reg.
Reg, yeah.
You can join the It's Just a Hill team if you want. We're trying to raise $1,000 between all of us. And I think it's just going to be a lot of fun. It was great last year, and
It's just a good spin, not a race. You just go out, you hang out, you have fun, you ride some super cool roads that are like secret roads that you'll never get to ride again.
Right.
And yeah, so everyone should absolutely be signed up for that.
Hell yeah, love that.
And they have options like the road option, the shortest one's like 15 miles or something.
yeah.
So it's like it's accessible to everyone.
Right, absolutely. A 60, like it goes from 65 gravel, a couple different shorter gravel options, and maybe 2 road options.
Yeah,
right?
there's like last year was like a 40 something road and
Right.
maybe like a 15 or a 20 or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's very welcoming and good stops. There are a couple stops to refuel. And then like a little bit of a party at the end, right? Like with pizza and beer.
Yeah, at
and
Salisbury Farm.
refreshments at Salisbury Farm and Johnston Situate Line over by Peck Hill Road. And it's a lot of fun. You get to start in a field with a bunch of wind turbines, and it's great because it is a place that we normally ride, but like you said, roads that we don't normally ride on. So
yeah,
it's
I'm
cool.
really excited. I didn't have my gravel bike that time last year. It was a whole thing with Canyon. I'm still salty about it. Anyways, I now have a gravel bike. I will be doing that long ride with you guys. The gravel option.
Yeah, I can't wait. I know a lot of us are signed up for that,
Yeah.
and I think it'll be tons of fun. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Tour de Rhody, 200 miler. I'm also planning a route that touches through every state of New England, so let's do that too.
Yeah, I'm super down. I really like the long endurance rides. Like we did that Kank Century this month. That was like, I did 3 centuries this month, which was like super cool. For me, that's huge. I had done 1 last year only. That's my only century I'd done. So 3 in a month is really cool. Those long endurance rides where you just like, you get to hang out and you got all day to be on the bike. And you just get from point A to point B. Like that's kind of my jam. I love that stuff. So
Me too.
I'm
And
super down for
I'm
that.
all about endurance, right? Just pushing yourself to see what you are capable of physically, but more important, mentally.
Yeah.
Right.
And
like
you suffer, like everyone's like, you can see on a ride, everyone's suffering in their own way. And you're together as a group. So like makes it somewhat better than just like I suffered alone in the Gran Fondo for most of the ride.
Right,
It's like, there's the motivation there. And yeah, you can just do so much more than you think you can. There's always more gas in the tank. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, right. And you would. It is very surprising what you are capable of, like as a person.
Couple blueberry fluff and bacon sandwiches later, and you're good for another 60 miles.
Yeah, I love that. Ooh, man, that sounds so good. Who do we convince to make those for us?
Brian.
Brian?
Yeah.
You
You're
heard it
on
here.
it, Brian.
Brian, you're on it. After you're done making ice cream or whatever.
A guy in his fluff.
Yeah, a guy in his fluff. This is a great opportunity to plug our sponsors. A Guy in His Pie out of Providence, Rhode Island. Bomb Burritos out of Westerly, Rhode Island. We're also recently sponsored by Mythic Bike Works in Peacedale, which is a quaint little township within Wakefield, Rhode Island. And also one of our newest sponsors, Pepperidge Farm. So check all of them out. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Adam, thank you for being here. Is there anything you'd like to say before we get out of here?
No, thanks for having me. This is great. Riding a podcast. This is a good day.
Yeah,
and I get to telework tomorrow, so hell yeah.
Yeah, love it. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, take care, man.
Bye.
Decaf left, regular right. Decaf left, regular right. It's very challenging work.